Welcome to the 2009 PolyCast Christmas Special. I'm DanQ, joined by Makahlua.
Hello.
TheMeInTeam.
Happy holidays, everyone.
So those are my fellow PolyCast co-hosts, but we're also joined by Wouter Snijders, Locutus, representing ModCast.
Hello. Happy holidays.
And representing the RevCast panel, Joe Reeves.
Hi.
And Matt Morgan, elthrasher.
Hey, happy holidays.
Welcome to PolyCast.
DanQ.
TheMeInTeam.
Makahlua.
Locutus.
Joebreeves.
elthrasher.
Christmas Special 2009. 'Tis the time for Civving.
No, I'll have my Christmas present for you on our game tonight.
Whoa!
My bad.
In the news, the decade that was in computer video gaming and where Civilization, both 3 and 4, fall in reflection.
In the forum talk, we talk about the Christmas PBEM game and a new CivIV Fansite, Fastmoves.
For Show Talk, we talked about the 2009 highlights for Civilization 4 and Civilization Revolution, and talked about the different PolyCast family members.
And finally, under the miscellaneous category, Retro Rewind, a couple of quizzes to test your memory on Civilization 2. Looking at the 2000s, the top 50 video games of the decade. Okay, so not video games, not just computer games, but still at Destructoid. At number 31 is Civilization 3. Yeah, that's the only Civ title. The only rule for this series, other than making sure the game was released between 2000 and today, is that only one game from each series could make the final cut. And I'm thinking, what? I'm not debating necessarily that it's Civ titles at 31 out of 50. I'm saying it's Civ 3. It is a real testament when, even today, 8 years since the game's release, people are still falling in love with Civilization 3, quote-unquote. Well, maybe they are, but as compared to Civ 4, what?
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Conclusion, Destructoid does not play PC games. Not strategy games, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask what other PC games are actually on the list.
I'm guessing not too many, actually. Going through the list here, don't see anything.
No, yeah, I'm just looking at the list here, and the only one I see is one that's also on Xbox, which is Call of Duty. You can get a PC version of that, so that's about as close as they're getting.
Yeah.
Well, there's Star Wars KOTOR also.
Yeah, some multi-platform games, but...
Yeah, there's a link that goes to their top 10 of the decade, and most of it, I mean, some of it's also on PC, but almost everything is still on Xbox as well, and so...
Well, that's not so bad then. I mean, the fact that they even mention it.
No.
Yeah.
I'll take it as the family.
How funny would it have been if they put CivRev on now?
I think it would have been awesome.
Oh, I'm sure. I've heard CivRev is actually a very good game. I haven't played it.
I just wanted to hear you backtrack.
I'll go on the record as saying I enjoyed Civilization Revolution more than Civ 3.
I just don't think CivRev is at the point in its development where it would be better than Civ 4. For its time, maybe Civ 2, but I don't know. Probably not. I think CivRev might be better. But just because it's a console game, that they would choose the console thing automatically. That's why it would be funny.
Yeah.
Any lists like this, it is difficult, as is probably exemplified more in the next news item, regardless of the platform in terms of, what type of game you're looking to play, what kind of mood you're in, what kind of gamer you are. I think maybe the next one is even more interesting because it actually considers Civ 4, but then Civ 4 is set aside in favor of another title in this game of the decade over a crispy gamer. Now, in this case, eventually they got to the point where it ended up being popular vote. Before they got to that, as part of the Crispy Gamer Game Trust, of which there are more than 7 individuals, but there were 7 people chosen specifically to come up with the game of the decade. And in the second round, Civilization 4 lost 4-3 to Peggle.
I don't even know what that is.
It's pinball. I've heard about all the Peggle editions, but dang, people.
Yeah.
The Barbs killed the Civ 4 at 1% odds here is what just happened.
Perhaps it does suck up as much time for some people as Civ 4 does, but...
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And it definitely is more, as some people argued in comments on the Flash of Steel article too from Troy Goodfellow, who is part of the Gamer Trust, and he said that as part of this trust to which I was not invited, quote, seriously guys, I love Peggle, but no way is it better or more significant game than Civ.
No.
Now, I think it was an interesting point by Kynes, who actually favors the Peggle choice over Civ 4, but he does say, I think they should have clarified exactly what they mean by game of the decade, whether it be the most influential game, the most well-designed, or perhaps the game that represents the gaming zeitgeist. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. I never used the word.
Zeitgeist. But, well, the thing is, this is a popularity contest, so the only thing that counts is what most people have played. And yeah, I dare say probably 10 times more people have played Peggle than Civilization 4, so I'm not surprised in that sense.
Yeah. If you look down the list later on in the bracket, who Civ 4 would have been taken on, next bracket was Luminous, but they would have to take on either The Sims or World of Warcraft, so, I mean...
Yeah, exactly.
Screw that. Civ 4 owns WoW.
And I cannot believe these people pick The Sims above Mass Effect. What is wrong with you people?
Oh my gosh, wow. But that's the exact same thing, though. The Sims beating Mass Effect is the same as Peggle beating Civ 4.
As a popularity thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a popularity thing, exactly.
Yeah, if you look in that same division up there, you look up at the top, you've got Elder Scrolls Oblivion versus Deus Ex. Now, I know which one is the better game, but I know Oblivion's going to win. Even though it's not a bad game, but it's popularity again.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, at least in Sims versus Mass Effect, I mean, The Sims is a significant milestone in gaming, I would say. It's not for most of us, but it is an important game in its own right.
It is.
Peggle, maybe not so much.
Well, I could see the argument both ways. I could see that it is because it got mom, it got dad, it got everybody in the gaming where it was something that was approachable, but it's still...
There have been other casual games, I would say Bejeweled before Peggle then.
But look, Bejeweled got beat by Oblivion.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is all over the map.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you get with these popularity contests.
I agree.
Is StarCraft more than 10 years old now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I feeling old?
Yes.
Jeez.
It came out in the 90s.
1998.
March 98. My God.
As we're recording this, the championship match is between World of Warcraft and Half-Life 2.
Oh,
In any event, further from the comments on the Flash of Steel blog by Troy Goodfellow, one of the other angles other than the fact of what do we mean by game of the decade, depth, design, popularity, Thomas Kilney says, if you accept civilization as a concept as fantastic, then you could argue that Civ 4 is a refinement on a fantastic idea that predates this decade, in which case its importance is significantly reduced, quote unquote. I don't accept that as much as the issue about how do we define game of the decade. Or Neil saying, could not go with Civ 4 simply because it's just a refinement of an existing game.
Well, that's ignorant speaking, but they can't play every game, I guess.
Even though Thomas Kilney was the first one who said that Civ 4 is just a refinement, suggested that. He's saying if you accept that, he doesn't say he himself thinks that, but he puts that idea forth, and then Neil agrees with that. Thomas also says that you can't compare Civilization and Peggle. They share no common ground other than people who play them, and so there are a few ways to actually compare them. If you are in the frame of mind to play Civ, then you probably don't really fancy a game of Peggle and vice versa, quote unquote. I figure that's probably the most fair comment I've seen. But as has already been said, these types of polls and top 10 and votes, it is a popularity contest.
So they have Madden NFL 2005. Okay. We want to talk about a refinement.
That's one of the last good versions, though. First time 05 was actually good, unlike some of the newer ones.
Well, then don't call Civ 4 just a refinement of 3.
Well, yeah. I don't buy that argument at all, by the way.
Someone else in the thread, Rob Zachney, then over in his blog, said after reading what Troy had wrote that I'm thinking the 4 in Civ 4's title does it a disservice. It creates the illusion that Civ 4 is yet another iteration of Sid Meier's old design, when in truth is that Civ more is considerably more. Most of its mechanics don't appear in the first two games, and I certainly couldn't have imagined 15 years ago how Civ 4 would be handling diplomacy, combat, religion, or governance. Culture would not have even occurred to me. So then he says, if you're going to say that it's still just a refinement, quote unquote, then I never want to hear you breathe a word about the originality of a game in which you point guns at things and shoot, or take characters on adventures in which you gain experience and you improve your skills. Truly great games like Civilization 4 get lost between the narrow mainstream and the falsely the Christmas play-by-email game, where the idea is to give, and you give points for giving. We noted in our segment that there were some flaws with how this was being implemented. And if you have a look at this thread, the title of the thread is The Christmas Play-by-Email Game - last year's was featured on PolyCast Christmas Special 2008. And in this person's signature, they link to the Christmas Play-by-Email Game, and it says it was featured on PolyCast Christmas Special 2008. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen people link to PolyCast other than hosts on the show.
Merry Christmas, Dan.
But my favorite part is in the opening post for this version in 2009, which is now Civilization 4 as opposed to Civ 3. 2 reasons this isn't a totally stupid idea. Number 2, last year's game filled up. And number 1, whoever decides what goes on PolyCast decided it was good enough to be on PolyCast.
Nice.
It's been DanQ approved.
And actually, on December 24th, he posted in response to his play-by-email game from last year that I just listened to that episode of PolyCast. I really needed to put more thought into this. I think we should restart and gift to the AI. So he says here that the victor is decided by giving the most. Points for giving. The number of points is undecided, but he was suggesting 30 points for every tech, 1 for every gold piece, 15 for a world map, but you can only do that every 10 turns, 100 for a city, and 150 for a city with wonders, but does not change with the number of wonders. Peaceful game, trades do not count as giving, no barbarians, all gifting is done to the AI. Standard hub map with AI in the center, Beyond the Sword 3.19. As of this recording, there are 5 slots, and 3 of them have already been taken up, but there are still 2 that are open now. Even with this version description, I still see some issues. I thought, how are you actually going to score this? Well, you don't pay attention to the in-game score, which would probably depress you. You pay attention to the scoring that's given because every single time you do something of this giving, you have to take a screenshot and submit it.
Oh, jeez.
Which... I mean, I don't know, maybe our Civ 4 modder on the panel can tell us, is there a reasonable way that you could actually mod the game so that you wouldn't have to do something like that?
Well, of course you can. It's just, do you want to spend 20 hours putting something like that together? If you happen to be a coder and you know the SDK to begin with, no, that's a lot of work.
That aside, I see something broken in the rules as it stands right now. You get a point for every gold piece? Seriously, I would just sit there with my slider off and keep giving the computer world map every 10 turns and just feeding it gold. Maybe I would give them gold every 10 turns too, just so I would take a bajillion screenshots. But if you have a decent economy, you can make enough gold so that you've essentially given the AI a city with wonders or more every turn. Just keep feeding it gold. I think that will easily outstrip anything else.
Yeah, but if everybody else is doing that...
Well, then it's just going to turn into a game of gold gifting. What I'm saying is I don't think the values are weighted properly.
Sounds like that's the idea.
So it's really just a function of who can generate the most gold then. I would like to see a little more balance so that there's some strategy incentive for going deeper in the tech tree before you just sit on gold.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a boring game to me, but yeah, I guess if people are into it. The main thing I'm wondering about, it's a Christmas PBEM. They realize PBEM takes 5 years to complete, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's Christmas every year.
I can never play that format. It's too slow for me.
Well, yeah, they didn't call it the 2009 Christmas PBM.
There you go.
It's the Civ 4 Christmas PBM, so...
Estimated finish time is somewhere in 2012, but it'll,
That soon?
probably around Christmas.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if it's still going at this time last year, because the Civ 3 one was abandoned earlier this year. Officially about early February or so, based on the thread. Guaranteed that it will be discussed in the next season of PolyCast. Fast Moves over at fastmoves.wordpress.com. Civilization 4 and strategy. Detailed paragraphs, screenshots, interesting pressing discussions, regular updates right now.
Yeah, this is a really, really good site. I mean, it says it's primarily for multiplayer, but there's a lot of deep strategy discussion here.
Yeah, there really is.
I think this would be interesting for a lot of people.
I can see it's for multiplayer, though, because you see unusual single-player units not favored, like the Conquistadors and Vulture. Those are excellent single-player units, which I would vehemently disagree with them being on a flop 5 for single-player. But for multiplayer, I can kind of see it.
That makes sense. Some things are more for multiplayer than others. Things like unique buildings articles, I think they're pretty much the same for multiplayer and single player. Yeah, how to use a great general. I mean, I don't think that's going to be terribly different in multiplayer.
No, definitely not.
The site started in late October, so it's still a new site. So hopefully they're able to keep up this level of updates and details and maybe even expand also the number of people that they have on the site. I mean, they have a few people reporting, but we know how burnout can be. I'm certain it will continue to gain in popularity, and as I said, we'll look at some of their specific articles that have already been posted, and I'm sure even those articles that they've not even yet thought.
I learned this song at the old North Pole, taught to me by this merry old soul. It has a beat that really hops, it's called Santa Claus Rock. It really was such a sight to see 2,000 elves dance around that tree. I never saw so many kicking feet as they danced Santa Claus Rock.
We'll start with Civilization 4. I broke it down by official, so that's official being from Firaxis and 2K, press, any major gaming press, and then, of course, the community. With my list here, May 1st, Polton CS Transition 2009, May 3rd, launch of WePlayCiv.com. June 10th, the 3.19 Beyond the Sword patch is released. July 27th, Beyond the Sword is released on the Macintosh. And then Civilization 4 Colonization coming to the Mac in December, September 27th. October 1st, the Calling All Dawn CD was released by Chris Tin, who did Baba Yetu for Civilization 4, and the CD includes a new remix of that. And then on October 22nd, we just talked about this, the launch of Fastmoves CivIV strategy blog. So I'll go to Mackie. Do you think there's something on there that shouldn't be on there? Something I missed?
No, but I agree that the 3.19 patch is awesome because now I don't have to hunt down the CD every time I want to play Civ.
I just did these in chronological order, but absolutely no question if I was going to rank these in terms of importance, that would be number one.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with your list. Maybe because it's Christmas or something, but I don't know. I'm not inclined to disagree here.
It's not like your other list where you include something that we're just like, oh, God, Dan.
Oh, this is your Christmas present to me, Mackie and Philip, not criticizing my list. All right, thank you. It's what I wanted.
I don't know. If these are the highlights for the year, it was a pretty boring year.
Well, it's not a release year, so...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the last update was 2 years ago, basically, if you don't count patch.
Yeah.
Not really a surprise, but yeah, not much really happened. Don't know if it was this year, but Planetfall is looking really, really good. It's been going on for a couple of years, I guess. Right now, it's definitely the coolest mod of this year, I think, probably. People don't play too many mods, check that one out.
They're the most shocking thing I know. 9 pranced reindeers stole the show, and in the room it started to snow as they danced the Santa Claus Rock. Oh, Mrs. Claus, she stepped right in. This is how she stays fit and thin, with whirling moves and sudden stops. She danced Santa Claus Rock.
So moving on from Civilization 4 over to 2009 highlights for Civilization Revolution.
Not so much on the playing side. I think I would just point out the release of the iPhone version, which was a big hit for them, actually. While the free version was kind of buggy, the pay version is still being updated, and it still has a good following online.
Yeah, on August 10th. That was one of two highlights I had for CivRev, and that would definitely be the number one. The only other highlight I had on there was for those with the DS version, which includes me on February 10th, an expanded DS guide came out from 2K, which I have found useful.
True, yeah. Specifically for me, to be kind of greedy or selfish, it's the interview with the Firaxis Games executive producer Barry Cottle, were two bigger highlights in the game itself. And I'll leave the online play or the actual gameplay to Matt.
I haven't played online since early November because I got the Red Ring of Death, but I should be back. I've still been following the forums. It looks like the online community is healthy. A lot of players out there. We get new players to the forums all the time. The main forum for this game, for whatever reason, not that I have any prejudice, it's the official 2K game site. It's forums.2kgames.com. We get new players asking for basic noob advice all the time. Seems to be a pretty cool, pretty mature crowd wanting to learn about the game, learn higher strategy, and I'm really itching to get back into it.
Yeah, well, I guess one last thing I want to point out about the game, while Civ 4 was released on Steam, so it's a highly portable game, playable on any PC that you go to as long as you have a Steam account, The game was also released on Xbox Live Marketplace for $30, so you can buy the game without going to the store and just downloading it and playing it, having it on your hard drive, and it's constantly there. But I'd say, as far as the game is concerned and development, it's done, so it's all going to be based on the online play from here on out.
Yeah.
I bought the iPod version of it. It's just like the DS version, only just kind of prettier graphics and just different input styles.
Probably bears mentioning that they're still releasing a game of the week every week.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they have that on the iPhone or not, since I don't have it. But for the console versions, for Xbox 360 and PS3, there's a game of the week every week, and it's the exact same game. In fact, if you make all the same moves, you'll have exactly the same results when you get into combat and things like that. Everything's in exactly the same place, so you can play the exact same game as someone else and compare scores.
Santa Claus run.
So then that takes us to 2009 highlights for PolyCast, ModCast, and RevCast. I thought we'd go in alphabetical order, which means ModCast is first.
The highlight is at the very end of the year, an interview that we did with Soren Johnson. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and for those people who, strangely, they might be listening to the show and honestly don't know who Soren is, or is like, I've heard that guy's name before. What'd he do again?
He made Spore.
Yes, and we did actually talk about that. So he made Civ4, basically, the lead designer. And he's now working on a new project on WePlayCiv.com, Strategy Station. Basically an independent web-based strategy games. We talked about that. We talked about Spore. We talked about Civ4. Talked about all sorts of stuff with him. And that's a pretty cool interview to do, as always, with Soren.
Other highlights from Civ for the year, Civilization Network being announced on October 21st. But for PolyCast, again, chronological order, the first gaming journalist to appear on the show, Troy Goodfellow, which we mentioned a little earlier from the Flash of Steel blog, and also from the 3 Moves Ahead podcast. He was on PolyCast, episode released on August 31st. October 20th marked the third year since PolyCast launched. We released third pilot to mark the occasion, the last pilot that had yet to be released. Now, Mackie.
Oh, the pilots. Oh, the pilots. Awkward silence in full effect.
And then on November 7th, it was announced that PolyCast was successful in its gaming category nomination in the 2009 Podcast Awards. Last year, it was both gaming and best produced. And if you have a look in either the threads on Appleton or Civ Fanatics and We Play Civ, if you have a look at the number of shows that were nominated and number of ballots that were cast, you will see that it's an increase of about 15% over 2008. And then, actually, what's running right now, as of this recording, and will still be when this special is released, but maybe not by the time you listen to it, is the For Completeness Sake contest, which actually could also fall under the ModCast highlight as well, because it's a shared contest, where we are giving away 25 copies of Civilization 4 Complete, but 5 of those 25 are signed by Sid Meier himself. You have to complete the sentence, Civilization 4 makes my life complete. For the 2009 highlights for RevCast.
Well, I guess being born would be the primary highlight there.
Genesis. Yes, February 19th.
Well, I'm sort of a latecomer. I guess I've done 3, 5, something like that, podcasts. The highlight for me, it was when Joe and his co-host at the time interviewed Barry Cahill. I think that was a really interesting episode, and anyone interested in the Civ universe at all should probably give that a listen.
Joe and his other host at the time. I'm so glad to know I'm so memorable.
Oh, were you? Sorry. I know it's changed, and that was before my time, and I did go and listen to those episodes, but...
Way to make your mark, man.
That's all right. I was just a fill-in regular co-host. I actually didn't say a lot. I know Mackie and Philip are thinking, why couldn't you do that on our show? But
Yeah, really, Dan.
I'm not going to say anything.
That's a good point because, Mackie's got job security and you don't. So, no, I'm kidding.
Job security, huh? What are you going to do, cut my pay?
So, yes, that was interviewing, the executive producer, Barry Cahill. As Matt mentioned, he guest co-hosted on a 2-parter, released on September 30th and October 14th, respectively, talking about CivRev. we were given from Firaxis were 5 copies of Civilization Revolution for the iPhone and the iPod Touch to give away in the Rhyme for Revolution and Ring It Up contests on August 19th and October 9th, respectively. And there we go. So those are the 2009 highlights. Name the technologies from Civilization 2 actually was emailed to me by a friend. He doesn't play Civ that much anymore, but he knows I do. And he says, I came across this quiz and I thought of you. And I'll have to call up the email here to see. I think he actually might have beaten me in the first round or was pretty close actually, the number of technologies which I could remember, which if it was Civ 4, I would have been very sad. But this is Civilization 2, and I haven't played Civilization 2 since 2001. So, let me see. He scored 47 out of 88, and what was my score? 47 out of 88. Oh, that's just freaky. Not necessarily the same 47. So out of 88, you have to name all of the technologies from Civilization 2, and you have 15 minutes in which to do so. Now, that is enough time to load up the technology tree, more than enough time, and just enter them all and say, yes, I got all 88. But I actually tried this without even doing that, and I got 47 out of 88, so I was pretty happy with myself. How did other people do? If you had a chance to take it, of course.
Not.
Yeah, I didn't take it.
Yeah.
We were supposed to take this quiz? What?
I played Civ 2 as quite a young kid, and I just didn't play it very much. Like, I basically just world builder seeded and then often played some console, or maybe Warcraft. So it'd be hard for me to get any of the text anyway. I mean, I'm sure I could get some of them just because they're obvious, but past that, probably no good.
Same here. I'm sure I could get a few just based on other Civ games, but...
He wasn't able to be a part of this recording, but fellow ModCast co-host to Wouter, Peter, Maniac, got 59. And then while I was reading the comments to this discussion, the person who started this quiz linked to a shorter one, which is a 5-minute quiz, which I thought was a bit more manageable, which was naming the civilizations in Civilization 2 and their leaders.
Now that I could do. Probably, anyway. Most of them.
I got 36 out of 42 on the first go. I'll say the civilizations I missed. I missed the Carthaginians, which, okay. I missed the Persians. I'm thinking, oh dear. I missed the Sioux. I did input Native America, but I knew it wasn't called Native Americans in Civ 2. One that I did miss that I think is a fail was the Spanish. Oh my gosh, I completely blanked on them. Couldn't think of the name of the leader of the Celts.
They had both male and female leaders for each, I think, in Civ 2.
Yes, they did.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So that makes the leader list rather interesting.
Yeah, so with the leaders, if you guess one, then you get the full point. It will show you the leader that you did get and the one that you didn't get.
Oh, okay.
And you are Christmas, and all my wish list came true. You made me believe.
You've been listening to the 2009 PolyCast Christmas Special, joined by me, DanQ, and Reeves,
Namaste and happy holidays.
and elthrasher
Adios.
from RevCast, from ModCast, Locutus,
And have Happy New Year.
and my fellow PolyCast regular co-hosts that are able to join us today, Mackie,
Bye.
and TheMeInTeam.
So long, everyone. See you in 2010.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that ModCast, PolyCast, and RevCast will be back in 2010 just to make your day.
Miserable.
Well, now they
I was
don't
going to
have
say to annoy you, but that works too.
Alright, so I think I heard everybody say something except for Mackie. She might have just been drowned out by everybody else.
Well,
That's something. She talked to me.
is somebody shoeing a horse?
Yeah.
No, that's background noise on my end.
Okay.
Why don't we go with that? That sounds interesting.
Okay. Merry Christmas.
No, see, he's shooing the reindeer for the sleigh.
Gotcha, I see.
What makes shoeing a horse come to mind? I mean,
Well, it's just I keep hearing this tapping, and then it stops, and it's tapping.
yeah, but why a horse?
Well, what's funny, too, shoeing a horse? You know,
I think I heard a whinny.
because I'm hilarious.
All right, I'll accept that for now.
Circle gets a square.
All right, let's name this Texan Civ 2. No, I'm just kidding.
You want us to be here all day, do you? Jeez.
Okay. In the forum talk, we talk about the Christmas PBEM game and a new Civ 4 fansite, Fastmoves. Something like that.
Something like that. Editing will fix those.
Exactly.
Fellow PolyCast regular co-hosts that are able to join us today, Mackie.
Duh.
Duh?
I was trying to type the file name for the thing when you asked me.
Oh, and here comes Christmas. May all your wish lists come true, and may you believe.
Record date December 12th, 2009. Sound clips copyright Civilization 4, The Warlords, and the Beyond the Sword expansion packs. Non-Civilization 4 music is from the following works in alphabetical order by artist: Howard Perlman, Santa Claus Rock; Michelle McLaughlin, Celtic Christmas; Mystery Renderer, Angels We Have Heard on High, and O Come All Ye Faithful; and the Nadas, Here Comes Christmas. Copyright 2009, Civilized Communication at civcom.net.